Okay guys, hello and welcome back to the fourth and final part of our gluten-free series. Today, as promised, we are going to attack gluten-free waffles. So, just to review, for all those who haven't been to our last several parts of the series, we learned how to make a gluten-free flour out of rice, quinoa, and oat groats. It's one of many varieties you can make at home. We also learned how to make gluten-free pancakes, gluten-free muffins, and now we're going to finish it off with gluten-free waffles. I'm doing this so parents can have the opportunity and the resources and the skills to be able to make their kids something fun, enjoyable, and nutritious during this fall and winter season as they try to get a little bit healthier. Why do you ask? Why we're doing this? We're doing this because a lot of kids struggle with gluten or gluten-like sensitivities. And as an alternative, a lot of parents and families buy all of these packaged gluten-free products, which in any sense isn't very much better because they're loaded with a whole bunch of refined starches, fillers, and even a lot of them have sugars that we also don't want to put into our bodies. And so what we're gonna do today is show you how to make some amazing fall pumpkin spice waffles. And to do that, I've got the whole spread right here, what you're gonna need. It looks like a lot, but it's nothing big. It's just everything gathered together, and we'll kind of go over that today. So what we have briefly is we have some apple cider vinegar. We're gonna use apple cider vinegar today as an agent to make our sour milk, because a lot of them call for buttermilk, but for families like mine who don't do a lot of cow's milk dairy necessarily, we can add a little bit of apple cider vinegar to my coconut milk, almond milk, etc., and it gives it that souring effect as buttermilk would. We have, as always, our wonderful chicken eggs. My chickens have been very gracious to us this summer, giving us lots of their delicious eggs. We've got some delicious organic pumpkin. I'm not sure which variety of pumpkin this is, but it's a very good pumpkin. We've got our famous meal of chia and flax that we're going to use as a binder and a thickener, and to add a lot of omegas and fiber to these waffles, because we always want all of that good stuff in our waffles. We've got some olive oil today that we're going to use, and then we've got our 3-grain combo right here that we already talked about. We've got a little bit, I think, baking powder. Remember, aluminum free. Don't go cheating on the aluminum. We don't want to fill our kids' brains with aluminum. Then we have a little bit of coconut sugar, and I use coconut sugar when recipes call for brown sugar because it gives the same kind of flavor and texture that it's looking for. And so you just can go online or at Co-op or some other stores and you can get organic coconut sugar. It's not one I use a ton of, but I do like the flavor in things like my waffles, especially if we're mixing it with some of those fall flavors and spices. We've got coconut milk today. Got some great coconut milk that I'll add that apple cider vinegar to for our coconut. And then over here, we've got some amazing spices. We've got ginger, okay? We've got nutmeg. We've got allspice. We've got cardamom. And then we also have cinnamon. Spices, my friends, if you can learn anything about health and nutrition, the more spices you can add to your foods, these, in addition to many others, the better you will be. Spices are some of the best superfoods in relation to their ability to be packed full of phytonutrients and antioxidant compounds. There's a bunch of research out there about how efficacious and how healthy it is for a person to add pinches of herbs and spices to all meals, because of what it can do to help lower your free radicals or the oxidative stress that you get. And so we're gonna show you how to use a couple of these wonderful spices in today's recipe. Anything that I can, I'm always adding it. Then lastly, we have our little bit of stevia, because again, I like to mix my sugars, whether it's our honey, whether it's stevia, whether it's monk fruit sweetener, maple, or coconut sugar. We like to kind of do a combo of everything, okay? And I did forget one thing. I forgot how to superfy these waffles with a little bit of extra protein, because we do want to make sure that we're not giving our kids a blood sugar spike. And if I just do some of the starchy grains, again, even though they're healthier grains, they are starchy grains. So you want to make sure to mix as much as you can, healthy proteins and fats, to be able to slow down the rate at which my body will absorb those carbohydrates. And so I'll be back in half a second. I gotta go grab, yep, you called it, I have to go grab my protein powder. All right, guys, I'm back, and as you can see, I grabbed my protein powder. We actually get a raw grass-fed whey protein powder. We also use the Orgain's Costco brand of vegetable protein powder that has like pea protein and some other vegetables in it, but I kind of balance back and forth between the two to make sure my kids are getting a good variety of everything. All right, let's get started on these waffles, guys. So I've got my recipe here in hand because, like you can say, my memory's not the hottest, especially for things like remembering 15 different measurements and ingredients. As we do this, I do want to give an apology to all the families that watched my last video on wintertime preparedness and how to prep your kids and winterize your kids. That show and that video was really dark. It was not planned to be that way, and unfortunately that's how it came out. But I have remedied the problem, and you will not have another dark video like that. So I appreciate the individuals who told me, Aaron, your videos are way too dark, you need to get that fixed. So our first step is 2.5 cups of our grape flour. So we're gonna get 2.5 cups. This is my great mixing bowl of our flour. We've got 2, good half cup here. Bam. And like I said, if you see this, I'm not using a knife to flatten it perfectly. I hate measuring in my house. Ask my family. I don't measure almost anything. I dump, I pinch, I throw, I spread, and that's how it ends up. And it usually works out. Sometimes it doesn't. My kids will attest to that as well. Next, with the flours, it's good to mix all of the dry ingredients first so you don't get clumps and you don't get weird stuff in there. So that's what we're gonna actually do today. So we're gonna do, oh my goodness, I forgot the salt. Salt. All right, we're gonna do a teaspoon of salt. Again, I'm measuring this in my hand because I actually have fairly good measuring skills, and we're only doing one recipe with today's video because my wife said not too many waffles. So I'm not gonna make too many waffles. Next, we're actually gonna do the 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Again, my friends, what was it? Yep, aluminum-free baking powder, because we do not want extra metals or chemicals or anything in our bodies as we make these. I thought I had a teaspoon. I'm just kind of off my game today. All right, so we're gonna do 4 of these, and remember, I like to squish the baking powder on my hand to get out the clumps, because nobody, and I repeat, nobody loves a clump of nasty baking powder in their bite of waffle. I can attest to that, and so can so many others. And so we're gonna squish it, dump it, that's 2. Here we go. This is 3. And we've got perfect number 4 for 4 teaspoons of baking powder. We're gonna put this off to the side because we are done with it. Next, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put my protein powder in here because it is a dry ingredient. I'm gonna put 2 heaping tablespoons of this stuff in there because it'll give me about an extra 23 to 25 grams of protein in there, which means my kids are getting some awesome protein with every bite, which is great. If your kids are allergic to whey, again, you can use the vegetable-based ones at Costco and things like that. Next, what we're gonna do is we are gonna also add my coconut sugar. So this actually calls for, I think, a 1/3 cup. Let me just check, make sure. Yes, it calls for a 1/3 cup of my sugar. And so we're gonna go ahead and do a 1/3 cup of this coconut sugar. Oh, that just went everywhere. I am a messy cook, I can admit it. All right, and so some education points for today, okay? Because my whole purpose of these videos are not only to show you how to make great recipes, but it's also to show you how to make our lives a little bit healthier and a little bit better. We're gonna talk about spices and herbs. Spices and herbs that are wonderful to use in the fall and the winter. You said it, any of them. So I actually have a goal that I make with families that I see is to add 1 new spice a month if they can. Meaning, pick a spice that you're not familiar with, that you've never maybe cooked with. Maybe it's one we're gonna cook with today, and try to add it to some of your recipes throughout the week. A lot of these spices you can add to a variety of foods. For example, I like to ask families to add turmeric. Turmeric is an amazing spice. It has wonderful qualities. One of those being it has what we call curcumin as one of the components in turmeric. Curcumin is a very big stabilizer and a reducer of inflammation, both systemic and inflammation that even can go into my nervous system, brain, etc. Why is that beneficial? Because a lot of our bodies are being attacked by toxins around the clock. When we go outside, we're sucking in exhaust. When we go to schools, we're sucking in the paint exhaust. We're sucking in all the breakdown from the flooring, etc. And over time, what that does is it builds up in our tissues and our lungs, and it actually makes our immune system start to go on higher and higher alert, which actually creates problems for us later in life because we get so much inflammation that our bodies don't know what to do with it, and then it starts creating autoimmune concerns and other problems. And so turmeric, adding pinches, to our daily recipes, whether it's your scrambled eggs, whether it's your soups, whether it's your smoothie, you can add it to almost anything, and you are increasing your intake of antioxidants, superfoods, and it in turn is helping to reduce your systemic load of oxidative stress and inflammation. What's better and more beneficial than that? I don't know. So next, what we're going to actually do is we're going to put in a pinch of stevia. Remember, in these recipes, I'm probably only putting in the equivalent of half a teaspoon of stevia, especially since I already did a little bit of that coconut sugar. I don't want my waffles over sweet. I just want them nice and perfect in terms of sweetness. We're going to add our spices, okay? So cinnamon. I find that with these recipes, I like to add a little bit more spice for a little bit more flavor. If you just want that hint of flavor, perfect, put a pinch in. But for me, I am heavy-handed when it comes to spice. And so it usually calls for a teaspoon of this cinnamon. I'm actually going to put in closer to around 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. Nutmeg, you do have to be a little bit careful with because it is a very strong and potent spice. And so I usually stick to about a third of what I do cinnamon. I'll do in my nutmeg just so it's not overwhelming with nutmeg. A little nutmeg goes a long way. Cardamom, same thing. Oh, this is my cardamom. I love cardamom because it has a very big fragrance aspect to it. But again, a little bit goes a long way. I keep it to the similar measurements as I would my nutmeg. And then allspice, I could be a little bit more generous with allspice, kind of like my cinnamon, but not quite too much because it will actually help to give a great flavor. I'll add all the measurements, like I said before, because you see me shake it in my hand, dump it in, and they're like, I can't follow that. It's not measured. I'll put in all the measurements in the end of the video, so watch to the end and you'll get the list just like you have with every other video. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sour the coconut milk. And what that means is I'm gonna take my apple cider vinegar, and this is actually some apple cider vinegar we brewed in our house from apple cores. If you're ever interested, I'll get you that recipe too. I put about a tablespoon of the apple cider vinegar in my coconut milk, and then what I'll do is I'll gently stir it up and just let it sit for a minute. And the apple cider vinegar is nice because it'll also help activate the baking powder and any other leavening that I might have added to my recipes. So it's kind of fun and nice, and it actually gives it a really nice flavor. Now, with waffles, one thing that you have to do is separate your eggs and fluff up the egg whites. If you want really fluffy waffles, don't just crack your eggs in because it'll make a more consistency like a pancake. If you want fluffy, crispy waffles, you want to separate your eggs from the egg yolks. You're going to fluff up the egg yolks like we're going to do today, or the egg white, like we will today, and then the egg yolks go right in the batter. But before we do that, we're actually going to take and do some heaping tablespoons of, probably equivalent to like 1.5 tablespoons of my chia and flax meal. And remember, I'm putting this in because I want to fortify the omega oils. I want to fortify all the fiber that my kids are getting, and I also want to fortify some of those antioxidant properties that are in this. Just as a reminder, don't forget, if you are grinding your own flour or if you're making your own flour product, keep it in the fridge. Same thing. If you're making your own flax chia meal, I have it in a baggie. I usually have it in a mason jar. It's not good to store stuff in plastic baggies because your plastic will degrade in hot and cold, and you'll actually get plastic-like products in your food. And so this actually is going to go into a little mason jar, and it'll go back into the fridge or the freezer until I use it. Now I'm going to stir all the dry ingredient in. It smells absolutely amazing, guys. Oh, I can smell all the spices. I can smell the different flour blends. This is so great. I don't have to be too careful because I'm going to actually mix it in with my mixer in just a minute. And so we're going to get this rolling. Perfect. Now, as you can see, I still have my pumpkin here. I have my souring coconut milk here with the apple cider vinegar. And next what we're going to do is just gently separate these egg whites from the egg yolk. If you've never done it, you can either drop the egg into your palm and just gently let all that gooey egg white out, or you can do it like I'm doing it by cracking the egg down the middle. Just gently open it up so it doesn't pierce that yolk, and then you kind of flip-flop it from side to side. I don't know if you can see this super well, but from side to side until that egg white separates all by itself. It shouldn't take more than just a second or two. We got 2 more to go here. I hit that one kind of hard. Hopefully it doesn't pop my little poor yolk. We're doing good so far. So far, so good. Oh, we got a little bit of shell in there. We'll get out in a second. There we go. We'll get the little shell piece out that I just threw in on accident. And then we got 1 more to go, guys. All right. Now, while I'm waiting, I'm actually going to get my waffle iron ready. And I don't know if you guys remember in the last episode when we were talking about cooking ware, especially for things like pancakes and muffin tins, we specifically talked about what metals to stay with, what metals to actually avoid. This is a cast iron version of a waffle iron, and so that way I'm not getting Teflon on it, I'm not getting anything that's degradable that's going to get into my food, and it's something that I would actually recommend for all families to follow suit. You don't ever want to cook with Teflon because Teflon not only flakes, especially if you use anything abrasive on it, and then that goes into your food, but if you're using Teflon, it's also underlaid with aluminum, and that aluminum then starts to leach into your food, and then you get aluminum toxicity in a sense because you're leaching small amounts of aluminum in your food, which eventually will gather up and start to cause problems in your body. Okay, guys? So now we've got our egg whites. What I'm going to do really quick now is we're going to pause the audio. I'm going to quickly blend this up, fluff it up real good so you can see exactly what this is going to look like. All right, guys, we are back. So here's what happens. When you mix egg whites really fast, all you're doing is basically pushing air pockets into the egg whites, which is what's fluffing it up. Our goal is to get really firm egg whites. As you can see here, it's not moving, it's not going anywhere, and that's how you know it's done. You can actually get peaks off of it. And what peaks means is if I try to poke at it, it's gonna just fluff up and it's not gonna move. When you get it this consistency, that is what you want. I think it took us about 90 seconds, 2 minutes, give or take, and our egg whites are ready to rock and roll. So now that our dry ingredients, are ready, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add all of our wet ingredients. So that means my awesome egg yolks. Look at the color of those things. You can't get those at the store very well. So we've got egg whites. We've got our sour milk right here. We're gonna dump that in. Just making sure I don't put too much in. It smells so good. So the recipe calls for 2 cups, and I'm actually putting in about 1.5 cups with the can of coconut milk. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of water in 2 seconds. So we've got next my olive oil. I need 1/3 cup of olive oil. And so here we go, 1/3 cup of my olive oil, friend. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And then we've got my wonderful pumpkin. 1 can, about 15 ounces of pumpkin. And that's what's gonna call for the whole recipe. And then we're gonna mix that up real good. I like to use a mixer. You can use a whisk if you wanna use a whisk. but I find that there's a lot of bits of unmixed stuff if I do my hand mixer, or if I do my whisk and not my hand mixer. All right, guys, we're back. So next, once we've mixed it, this is what it's gonna look like. It's gonna be kind of a doughy, kind of a thicker, I guess you could say, pancake consistency. And here's where the part comes where we fluff these babies up for the cooking. What I do is I take these egg whites that I've beat and that I've fluffed up, we gently put them in. The key with this part, guys, is do not overmix this. If you overmix it, you take out all the great air bubbles and it flattens out those waffles. So what you want to do is you want to fold the batter, just literally folding it over itself, and you're just gently trying to incorporate this egg white into the batter to, like when you're fluffing up the egg whites, you're trying to fluff up the entire batter. Again, we're being gentle, but we're also trying to mix it in just a teeny bit. You're gonna still see chunks of egg whites, and that's okay. Don't try to get rid of all the chunks of egg whites. If you do that, it probably means you've overmixed this and you don't want to do that. So here we go. We've got our finished mixed product here. It's looking absolutely amazing. You can see right here, there's still little bits of egg white you can see right here that's been fluffed in, but it looks fluffy, it looks amazing. Our waffle iron is ready to rock and roll. And what I'm gonna do is I take pretty much a cup, measuring cup. We're gonna open this up. See, it's nice and steamy hot. And then we're gonna lay it right in the center. Sometimes you have to put a little bit of like coconut oil or butter or ghee or something to help so it doesn't stick. But we put a lot of good stuff in this and it should do great. So we're gonna do 1 scoop and probably a teeny bit more. And then we're gonna shut this and let it do its magic. We're gonna pause just for a few moments while this cooks, and then we will be back to show you the finished project of our wonderful homemade fall spiced pumpkin waffles. All right, guys, we are back with our first waffle of the day, and boy, does it look and smell great. Look at this thing. We've got great color. It looks a little bit dark, but that's because the batter itself is dark. Again, we did use pumpkin, we did use a lot of spice, and it smells absolutely wonderful, guys. So this is the recipe for how to make some awesome, super fantastic, super fried pumpkin spice waffles for your kids this fall and winter season. So I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Again, the recipe will be posted at the end of the video, and I am so excited to share with you next time a new series. Yes, you called it. We're going to start talking about sourdough. Everybody's in the crave of sourdough, and we're going to let you into the secrets of why sourdough is so good for you and your family. Thank you, guys, and join us next time on Root Cause Pediatrics Peds Bites.